name is Anna, welcome and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In honour of Autism Awareness Day and Month, I'm going to be going through 60 facts about autism. As an autistic person, April 2nd means a lot to me. It's not only about raising awareness for autism, it's also about celebrating autistic people. I hope you learn a thing or two from this video and I hope you enjoy watching it. Autism is a spectrum, which means each autistic person is different. However, only autistic people are on the autism spectrum. You can't be a little autistic. You're either autistic or you're not. You may see an autistic person wear ear defenders or headphones. This is because we're more sensitive to noise and sensory stimuli, so it can get overwhelming for us. People often assume that all autistic people are geniuses like Albert Einstein, Sheldon Cooper, or Rain Man, but that's a big misunderstanding. Some of us have a high IQ, but others of us aren't gifted in that way. There is no way to look autistic. Autism doesn't have a look. You may have seen an autistic person flapping their hands, repeating words, or playing with a fidget toy. This is called stimming, which is short for self-stimulatory behavior. Autism is not a disease. You cannot catch it, you cannot cure it. The proper term for autism is Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD for short. Schedule, routine, order, and structure are all calming for autistics. We like when things are planned and don't like change. Autism is sometimes also referred to as Asperger's syndrome, but that term is offensive and outdated, so please don't use it unless the autistic person themselves has asked you to. So-called mild autism doesn't mean a person is mildly autistic. It means you are experiencing their autism mildly. A highly common myth about autism is that boys are more likely to be autistic than girls, which is not true. In reality, girls are just as likely to be autistic, but we're better at hiding it, so therefore less diagnosed. Autism is a developmental disability that affects how a person thinks, feels, communicates, interacts with others, and experiences their environment around them.
An autistic tantrum is not the same as a meltdown. They are a result of feeling too overwhelmed. They cannot be controlled by an autistic person.
The first person to be diagnosed with autism was Donald Gray Triplett in 1943. Although it was discovered in 1943, autism isn't a new disorder. It's been around for a long time. Masking refers to when we try to hide our autistic traits to appear normal or neurotypical, and it can be extremely exhausting. Autistic people don't like empathy. Some autistics just show it in a different way, but that doesn't mean they don't care. And for other autistics like myself, we have so much empathy that it can be overwhelming. Autism rates are not increasing. As a matter of fact, people are actually becoming more aware of autism. You can't grow out of autism. Autistic children become autistic adults, and their struggles don't magically disappear. If you're autistic, then you're autistic forever. Anyone can be on the spectrum, regardless of age, gender, or nationality. It's commonly thought that autism is caused by vaccines, bad parenting, or spending too much time online, but those are all very wrong and have been debunked. You can't develop autism on later in life. You're born with it. Many people on the spectrum prefer identity first language rather than person first language, meaning that they prefer autistic person rather than person with autism. But ultimately, it depends on the person. Autistic people develop special interests and hyperfixations, which are intense interests that they are often very knowledgeable on and deeply fixated on. Autism is a disability. I'm disabled. Disabled isn't a bad word, it's the truth. Communication is a big trouble for autistic folks. Some may be fully nonverbal and others might go temporarily nonverbal in what's called a shutdown. 9 times out of 10, when an autistic person is rude, they probably didn't mean it in that way and likely don't know why what they've done is rude. Just because someone has autism doesn't mean that autism defines them as a person. There is more to someone than their disability. The regularly used functioning labels of high functioning and low functioning are deeply offensive for autistics. They can come off as a form of judgment, so please don't use them. Autistic people often struggle to understand internal cues like hunger, thirst, pain, temperature, and sickness, all because of our struggle with something called interoception. If an autistic person masks too much or spends too much of their time trying to fit into neurotypical standards, then they might go into something called autistic burnout. Not all autistic people are violent and aggressive. That's like saying all people with glasses are nerds. The brain shape of an autistic person is actually different to someone with an average brain. Our brains are larger, have more symmetry, and deeper folds. It's true that eye contact can be uncomfortable and unnatural for autistics, but it doesn't mean that someone isn't autistic just because they can make eye contact. The cause of autism is still being researched, but scientists have found that it can be genetic, with over 100 different genes potentially causing it. However, there are still other factors that haven't been found yet. Autism is not silly or cute. It is a serious disability that can majorly impact someone's life. Stimming isn't just hand flapping. It's a common stereotype that autistic people flap their hands. And yes, some of us do, but there are so many other different ways to stim. The term Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer used, was coined by Hans Asperger, a Nazi in World War II, who, believe it or not, assisted in the murder of disabled children. Alexithymia is the inability to recognize or process your emotions, which is something that many autistics struggle with. Just because someone is autistic doesn't mean they're going to be super introverted and never talk, or super extroverted and talk a whole heap. Autistic people are still regular people with different personalities, so traits and struggles will vary. If you know anything about autism, you may have heard of a group called Autism Speaks. What you need to know is this group is actually a hate group. While it may seem like they're supporting autistics, they are actually doing the opposite, so please don't support them. Autism isn't all bad. Yes, it can be very disabling, but it can be like a superpower too. Our ability to hyperfocus, extreme attention to detail, or creativity and passion are all awesome traits. You may notice an autistic person communicating using an AAC device, also known as augmentative and alternative communication. This can be used by someone who is nonverbal or perhaps in a verbal shutdown. Autism isn't just a label, it's an authentic and important part of our identity. Autism is now more commonly put into 3 levels. Level 3 requiring the most support and Level 1 not requiring much support at all. However, these levels are still just as ableist as the functioning levels, so please refrain from using them. Instead of having a meltdown, some people on the spectrum will have a shutdown, which is like an internal meltdown. Not all autistic people are excellent at maths. That's just a stereotype and an annoying one at that. An autistic individual might struggle to understand sarcasm and take things literally. However, not all of us struggle with this. Even if we do, that doesn't mean we can't have a sense of humor. Not all autistic people like trains. Our special interests can be anything and don't have to just be dinosaurs or trains. A large amount of autistic people aren't aware of social cues or their behavior, but other autistics are hyper-aware to the point where it can be painful to socialize. Many autistics have a safe food, which is essentially a food that makes them feel safe. It's something that doesn't bother their sensory issues and brings them comfort. Just because someone's nonverbal does not mean they aren't smart. Someone who's nonverbal can be just as intelligent or even more intelligent than someone who is fully verbal. No 2 autistic people will ever be the same. Everyone has their own struggles, strengths, and support needs. If an autistic person receives a late diagnosis, it can cause serious problems for their mental health. And they may experience something called imposter syndrome, where they doubt their diagnosis and can't accept that they're autistic. Most autistic people want friends but frequently get left out because people assume we're antisocial and don't. The support needs of an autistic person change multiple times a day. In some moments will require a lot of support, and in others will be perfectly independent. Stimming is a way for us to self-soothe, but also to express happiness and autistic joy. Getting a diagnosis can be really rare, especially for girls and people of color. So many people will be self-diagnosed as autistic before they can get an actual diagnosis. Being overstimulated occurs when you've had too much sensory stimuli, but being understimulated occurs when you haven't had enough sensory stimuli. Autistic burnout is not the same as regular exhaustion. It's a state of extreme emotional, mental, and physical fatigue caused by long-term masking and sensory overload. Rather than autism looking more like this with the functioning labels, it actually looks more like this with the wheel. You can't be more or less autistic. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learnt something new. Please comment any questions, suggestions or tips you have for me. Also feel free to info dump or vent in the comment section. This is a safe space for you. Happy Autism Awareness Day to anyone watching this video, and I hope you all have an awesome day or night. I hope to see you in my next YouTube video. Goodbye!